All right, give me a sec. Introduce this. It's a monster in me. All right, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Bullpen Blues. As always, I'm your co-host, Kevin Dixon, joined by our good buddy, David Esser. David, we have a special guest today.
Kevin, yes, we do. It is a very special morning. I would like to formally welcome to the show for the first time, and hopefully many more times after this, Francisco Rojas. Francisco, you do all sorts of things. Take a moment, plug all your work, tell people where they can find you, plug everything you have, and then we'll jump into the show.
All right. So, first off, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. One of my favorite podcasts out there, first and foremost. I do like you guys. I do a bunch of things. I am currently producing for Bell and the Birdmen, which is an Eagles podcast that you guys know Vince Quinn, John Barchard. So currently helping to produce that right now. We're getting ready to gear towards the draft in April. I know you guys are excited for that too. I'm a producer at WIP right now. Doing that on the weekends. Also, I have a YouTube channel, which is currently just Rojas Media. Also working on demos to start a baseball podcast. I will reveal that name soon. And so I'll be doing that, and I'll have the YouTube channel as well, but I'm going to be changing the name of the YouTube channel to what the podcast is going to be as well. So look out for that. That's probably going to launch in like 3 to 4 weeks. So I'll probably be teasing that on social media for, next couple of weeks. So look out for that. And besides that, not much I can really think of, just follow me on Twitter at Rojas_media_ and Instagram at Rojas_media. So yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, we'll make sure to plug all those links in the link below this episode. So yeah, everybody, make sure you go check out Francisco, longtime friend of the pod who, as we mentioned, making his first appearance, but there's definitely been some back and forth banter on Twitter, some jabs exchanged, some opinions differing. Always a great conversation with Francisco. So make sure to go check him out.
Well, hang on, real quick before we jump the show, Kevin, if I remember correctly, was Vince Quinn our first guest that we ever had on?
I mean, he was on. Yeah, I mean, if not the first guest, it was the infancy stages of Bullpen Blues.
Yeah, so small world coming full circle, going from Vince to Francisco.
Can I ask you guys a question too? So is Bullpen Blues? Is it based off like our terrible 2020 season? That's it, right? Yeah. So what happens if the bullpen we become like one of the top bullpens of baseball? You guys gonna change the name? Like, what's gonna happen?
Nah, because then we'll be bringing Blues to other teams, so it's okay.
That's good. I was gonna say that bullpen was so astonishingly bad. We can never forget. It'll never be. I don't care if we lead the league in saves, shutdown innings. We will never be able to forget the David Hales, the Dielos Guerrera. Like, I'm never gonna forget that era of Phillies baseball.
Yeah, that was and then Dielos Guerrera went on and had a pretty nice year with Oakland. Like, it's just ridiculous.
him and Cole Irvin just lighting up the world.
Yeah, but I mean, it was just that horrifically bad. It just fit, man. It just fit. And then, even the 2021 bullpen.
Oh, terrible too.
Yeah, it wasn't anything to write home about. So.
I guess they progressed, right? They went from like the 30th bullpen in baseball to like the 25th. Great
it's like the farm system, man. Yeah, the farm system's on the rise. We moved up to like 24th now. Yeah,
nice. One of the best farm systems in baseball. Absolutely.
They weren't historically bad in 2021, which is a step in the right direction. They were bad, but not etched in the history books.
Baby steps. They were so bad.
You had guys like David Phelps come over, who I think had a sub-3 with Milwaukee. He comes to the Phils, and that guy couldn't keep the ball in the yard.
Yeah. And we just lost our best reliever in Nearest. So
we
got Corey Knable, the savior, man. We'll be all right.
Oh yeah, if he can stay healthy.
But that's a good transition point. Kind of talking about 2021, the bullpen, the team. Francisco, another frustrating year. We get kind of the little victory at the end. Bryce Harper winning MVP, Zach Wheeler nearly winning Cy Young, but ultimately speaking, barely finished above 500. They missed the playoffs again. They missed the playoffs in a weak division. Francisco, the division wasn't good. What are your thoughts on the season, how it played out, kind of just the state of the Phillies at the moment?
Well, I'm annoyed because I predicted. I think a lot of us predicted that they were going to win between like 80 and 83 games, and that's exactly what happened. And like, there's no fun in that. Like, this team right now, there's no like they're not in a rebuild, which I think they should be, to be honest, like a semi rebuild. They're not in a rebuild. They're not like really in a spot to really win. The only way I could see them being in a spot to really win is if everybody on the team has a career year, and that's asking a lot. Like you can go back to like the 93 Phils, and I know multiple players have said that on that team, is that team got to the World Series because all of them had career years, and they were also all juicing. But this Phillies team right now, I just don't see. I want to say that I want to say that like I'm looking forward to the future and saying, oh, we can be optimistic about this team, but there's nothing to be optimistic about. I'm sorry, like there's no one. Everyone before the lockout started, all the free agents that I wanted to look at and say, oh, these like a Raisel Iglesias or like a John Gray who might fit the Phillies, guys that you weren't going to pay like $100-200 million, but it would add some value to this team. Those guys aren't there. There's a couple of guys that we'll get to that I still think in free agency that they could go after. But I don't feel too strongly about the team. I mean, I think Fangraphs has them projected to win around 82, 83 games. I still don't see that being like I still see that being the projection. I don't see them winning more than that many games. So I want to say, I mean, I'm excited for the baseball season to start. I guess I'm happy they're not a terrible team to a certain extent, but I still think the Mets are better. I still think the Braves are the best team in the division. The Marlins are on the rise. I don't think people are talking about that enough. I know they won 67 games last year, but they've quietly had a good offseason. They have a really, really underrated pitching staff. And, no one's going to be worried about the Nationals this year, but, maybe in a few years, they have a decent farm system. We'll see what's going on with them. But I'm not, they're just a middle of the pack team right now, man. And maybe the expanded playoffs will help them this year, but it didn't help them in 2020. And that was the expanded playoffs. So we'll see, but I'm not optimistic right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's fair. I mean, how can you really be optimistic with how this team's looked the last decade plus, So right. I think that's completely fair. I will say it's tough though, because we don't really know their full roster right now. I would be stunned if they were as bad as the 2020 team, just because, as we talked about in the intro to the show, the bullpen was so bad. Like even though they were pretty bad last year, like they were due for positive regression in the 2021, of
course,
which they did end up getting. It's hard to put a prediction right now. I like to be optimistic. I tend to agree with you the way they're completely constructed right now. I think around 80 to 83 wins is about probably the right place to put them. With that said, though, I mean, if they can add another piece or two here, guys stay healthy. Obviously things need to fall your way.
Right. Well, see, Kevin, that's my thing, though, is that like you're banking on other guys still having good years. Now I'm gonna be real with you guys. I really like Zach Wheeler, but are we gonna expect him to duplicate what he did this year? Like I'm not expecting that. I'm sorry. Like I think he's a really good pitcher. But I think he's more of the Mets Zach Wheeler than he is this. I mean, he did, like, I understand he had the 2020 season too, but that was 12 starts. So I like Zach Wheeler, but there's a lot of guys in this team where you're expecting them. You gotta expect them to have good seasons too. I mean, JT, he had a good season last year, but I don't know what to expect from him going forward. He's going to be on the other side of 30. I don't know. I want to say that they could be a piece or two away, but I feel like we were having the same conversation last year. It was like,
I'd say piece or two away from being like a piece or two away, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I don't think they're World Series contenders, but
I know what you mean. Like playoffs. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I still think a lot has to go their way. Like Zach Eflin has to stay healthy. And even if Zach Eflin is healthy, he has to pitch well. He has to be consistent. He has not proven that. I don't know what they're going to do with Kyle Gibson. He wasn't very good for the Phils, let's be real, when he got there. Like he was good for Texas. But there's just a lot of question marks for me. That's just how I feel. But I hope you're right, Kevin. I hope you're right. But you just sound like every other delusional, optimistic Phillies fan.
I personally, I think I kind of fall somewhere in the middle because, Kevin, you do tend to be a little optimistic. I don't want to say.
Well, I mean, it's the whole point of it, is it not? I mean,
I always appreciate.
I don't watch the Phillies to be doom and gloom.
I always appreciate the optimism. But Francisco, I don't think I'm as down as you are. I agree with your point where, and I love Zach Wheeler. I have always loved Zach Wheeler. I have articles 3 years ago talk how they should trade for him when he was on the Mets.
Yep.
Is he going to pitch that well again? Probably not. Bryce Harper. Everybody loves Bryce Harper. He's great. Is he going to win the MVP again next year? Probably not. He could. He very well could. He's fantastic. Yeah. Rhys Hoskins, is he going to be able to stay healthy after back-to-back injuries? Is Zach Eflin going to be able to stay healthy? Like, there's a lot of question marks with this team. With that said, they have a man upstairs in the front office who's his calling card is building teams around, to a playoff contender. Can Dombrowski take him to a World Series contender? I don't know. I don't think so. But do I think he's going to sign, one free agent outfielder and call it a day? Absolutely not. This team is definitely not 1 to 2 pieces away. They're more like 5 to 6. But I think Dombrowski is the type of guy who can go get 5 to 6 pieces. I'm not talking 5 to 6 stellar Gold Glove, all-star caliber players. A big bat, a good defensive shortstop, fill in the bullpen, fill in the rotation, fill in the outfield a little bit. You get good seasons from your core guys, your Bryce Harpers, your Aaron Nolas, your Zach Wheelers, your JTs, hopefully your Rhys Hoskins. Like, that team can win 84, 85 games. That team can sneak into a wild card spot. You get to the wild card spot, you're banking on Zach Wheeler pitching well. Like, I'm okay with that.
You just got to get hot. And just to push back on the Wheeler talk, because I agree. Is he going to pitch as well as he did last year? Probably not. But you got to also think, like, is Aaron Nola going to be as bad as he was in 2021? Right. Because, he could bounce back. I'm already thinking, I'm not saying he's going to win any major accolades, but there's going to be a lot of value on him to win the Cy Young coming off of how poor of a season he had last season. So, even if Wheeler takes a slight step back, if Nola takes a jump forward to be the guy he can be,
it's a great point.
Then you're kind of talking a little bit.
Yeah, it's a great point. I want to get you guys' take on this too. Part of me feels like Zach Wheeler's stock is at an all-time high right now.
Don't even say it. Don't even say it. Don't start.
I didn't say anything yet.
Don't start with me.
I didn't say I wanted to blow it up. I said I wanted to. I've said this in the past. I want to semi-blow it up.
Untouchable.
What's wrong with maybe trading a Wheeler to get maybe a good player back, plus a couple of prospects? Hold on. You want to build the farm system, right? You want to build the farm system.
I didn't say anything about building the farm. I want to win baseball games.
Right. I know, but sometimes you got to take a step back to take 2 steps forward. Maybe I know we've waited 10 years for the playoffs. We can wait an extra 5. Right? Look, I love the Phillies, but I also love my other 3 teams here in Philadelphia. The Eagles are probably closer than the Phillies right now. So you could trade a Wheeler, get some prospects back, a good player, maybe a good young player. Trade Rhys Hoskins, get some good prospects back. Someone's going to want Rhys Hoskins. Someone's going to want him. Those are 2 guys where they haven't proven to. Well, Wheeler, yes, but my whole thing is his stock's all time high. But Rhys Hoskins has not proven to be a consistently good player, and he's I've said the defense doesn't matter all that much to me, but he's been a terrible first baseman, and he has a good bat. I get it. But I just think going forward, I think it would be smart to trade Rhys and get.
You got to convince us, my dude. Neither one of us are big Rhys Hoskins guys.
Okay. All right. There are people out there that are big Rhys Hoskins fans.
Yeah, so there certainly is.
Yeah.
I think we're both on board with Rhys, especially with universal DH. There's a lot of NL teams who are going to need bats to fill that DH spot. And the Rhys is a very affordable DH that the Phillies, in all honesty, don't really have space for, considering how many
30 years old too.
Considering how many DHs they have on the roster. On board with the Rhys idea, and this is where it kind of goes back to the Dombrowski. If you need to bring in players, you do need to give up players. And I think pawning off Rhys to maybe bring in a little more depth, a little more upside. I'm on board with that. Wheeler, come on, he's an ace. I don't think he's a guy you touch right now.
But okay, so he had one really good season, like you said. Is he going to duplicate that again? Is he a?
No, but he can still be a comfortable number 1. Comfortable.
It's a possibility. Yeah. No, look, dude. Let's not forget. 2018, Aaron Nola had one of the best seasons by a Phillies pitcher ever, and people don't talk about that enough. By the way, one of the best seasons ever by a Phillies pitcher. He can. It's there. It's there. I don't know if. Hopefully it is there, but it's still there. It's in there somewhere. So, I mean, there's a chance Nola could come back and be the ace if he wanted to.
Yeah, but then you could have both guys though.
That's true.
Because
I know. But then what about the rest of the rotation? You got nothing.
Like, I feel you, but like the fact that they have Bryce Harper in his prime, that's why I'm like, I don't want to kick the can another 5 years down the road. Like, you might as well try to win now. That's kind of where my mentality is. Like, you have Bryce Harper smack dab in his prime.
Yeah, but I know, but this isn't basketball. This isn't, you don't got LeBron and Wade and Bosh saying we gotta win now. No, this is Bryce, Wheeler.
Francisco, I'll tell you this: if the Phillies win, let's say they win like 77 games this year, I'm all on board with not necessarily blowing it up, but retooling the hell out of this team. If you want to move Zach, if you want to move Reese, if you want to move Nola, you want to move Eflin, like I'm on board with like this core isn't working.
And
let's mix it up. Yeah, JT. But with where the team is right now, they weren't close last year, but they were within striking distance. There was a point in time where they held first place, and we all thought, that they swept the Mets at home. Zach Wheeler was pitching like Roy Halladay. Like, we literally thought this team is good enough. They weren't. There was too many holes. That's okay. With where the team is at, I don't think right now is the time to say, hey, it's not working. I think right now is the time to kind of double down on your investments and say, hey, we have some cap space. We have a few prospects who we think are ready to contribute. Guy like Ranger Suarez, guy like Bryson Stott. We hope these guys are Alec Bohm. We hope these guys are big pieces in 2022. Let's double down for another season or two. And then if it's not working, let's say, okay, Bryce, we're sorry. We messed this thing up, but we're going to try again in a couple of years.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I'd say maybe by the deadline this year, see where you're at, see how many games, how far they are in first place.
That's fair.
Maybe Wheeler's have, maybe to look at it this way, maybe Wheeler's having another really good season, but the Phillies suck and they're mediocre. They're not good. They're not even within striking distance, and they're going to be sellers. So that's a possibility too. So I wouldn't be waiting a couple of seasons though. I'm not waiting a couple seasons personally. I one season tops. I really it was last season for me, but I'm being nice giving them this season. So
I think this season's important. Then of course, like it gets derailed a little bit with the lockout, but just giving Dombrowski a full off season to be able to maneuver. But just in terms of, just to kind of shift gears here and try to get back to our first topic of the day, because we haven't even gotten to that, which is awesome, because that's what happens when you get three guys together who just love talking baseball, right? You just talk baseball. But we're talking prospects, we're talking trades, we're talking the ways that the Phillies can look to improve their team. Well, they made a pretty big move back in the offseason, going into what was it, 2019? Going into 2019 when they acquired JT Realmuto from the Miami Marlins for Sixto Sanchez was the main piece in that deal. I'm going to sit back and I'm going to let you guys, debate this out, because I know both of you feel really strongly one way, and it's on opposite sides. I do want to cut in and say I used to really be on the one side of it, where I was kind of like, why the hell are we getting rid of Sixto Sanchez? We're going to go look to extend JT Realmuto to this big contract. But what has transpired since, and the contract that Realmuto ended up getting on his extension, I've kind of pivoted back more towards the middle a little bit. I'm not really strongly either way. But you two take the floor. Francisco, state your case on why you believe the winner of the JT Realmuto trade is who it is.
Yeah, so more or less, though, I will say this. I think by the end of this year, we'll really know who won the trade. I want to say that. I just kind of wanted to give it this perspective. You got to look at it this way. Yes, Sixto's been injured. I get that. And I think was Alfaro a part of that trade? Correct? Right. And he's been whatever.
Yes, he was. Yep.
Yeah, he's been whatever. So I get that.
He's been horrible.
He's with San Diego now. He got again.
Yeah. We'll just put that to the side for a second. But you got to look at, and look, JT, I'll be best catcher in baseball, but how much value does that really have? Like, look, the catcher position isn't as valuable as it used to be. Not to say that JT Realmuto is not a good player; he's not valuable, but the whole best catcher in baseball label is just a little too much there for me. Still love JT. I just want to say, I still love JT. But have we looked at not outside of the trade, but not just looking within the trade? Look at what the Marlins have been able to do by not having to give that money, because JT Realmuto was going to get that money from anybody. It's going to be the Marlins. It's going to be the Phillies. He was going to be the best catcher in baseball regardless. He was having good seasons with Miami. Now that you look at it from Miami's perspective, yes, Sixto's been hurt, and it's to a certain extent, he's really fun to watch. So I know I'm a Phillies fan. Look, I want the Phillies to be great, but look, Sixto Sanchez is really fun to watch. So I don't want anybody to be hurt. I want to see great talent out there doing their thing. But I think Sixto is going to be healthy going into this season. I'm pretty sure he said he's 100%. So you got to at least give it this year to see what Sixto's got. And then if he gets hurt again this year, we can say, all right, well, this guy is just it's just not working. He's injury problems. But look at what the Marlins, by not having to give that monster contract to JT Realmuto, look at the offseason they've had. They got what? Avisel Garcia? I would love Avisel Garcia on the Phillies right now. Are you kidding me? They've been able to trade for Joey Wendell, who was an all-star last year. I'm trying to think of there's like a couple of other guys they got in there. They were able to extend Sandy Alcantara, who's one of the best young pitchers in the game. They got one of the best young starting pitching staffs in baseball. Albeit, I know they won 67 games this year, but also want to say this. And I know it's just projections, but Fangraphs has the Marlins winning only 2 less games this year than the Phillies. And you know what? That might be not too far-fetched. So, with that being said, look, by not signing JT for the Marlins, they've been able to do other things, and you still give an extreme talent like Sixto Sanchez, you give him another shot this year. So, look, I understand. I get JT. He's been great here. But look what it's done for the Phillies. They haven't all these expectations, and they haven't been able to put anything together. So I'm just looking at it from that perspective.
David?
Well, first and foremost, Francisco, I'm glad you can acknowledge JT's been great, because he has been great. And there's a sect of Phillies fans who hate JT, and I don't get it, because he's been nothing short of, and he's had cold stretches, but so has every player in the history of baseball. But he's been exceptional. I kind of want to answer one of your questions. You said how valuable is having a guy like JT, who to most people, he's the best catcher in baseball. If he's not the best, he's the second best. I pulled up Fangraphs real quick. He had the 27th best F4 in baseball last year, from a hitting perspective. Now, granted, F4 is not the end-all, be-all for stats, but that's a lot of wins from one position. And I think what it comes down to is with Sixto, there was so much mystery involved with him with his health, because his injuries are not a recent thing. He was injured when they found him. He was injured in the minor leagues. He was injured when they traded him, and then he gets to Miami, he gets injured again. And I think with the nature of how he throws, how violent of emotion he has, how hard he throws, when he's healthy, he's exceptional. The question is, can he be healthy? With where the Phillies were at and what they needed, they didn't need a question mark with one of the rotation members. They needed guys who were ready to be on the field and help Bryce Harper win games. As disappointing as the Phillies have been the last 3 years, it's not been because of JT. It's not been because of Bryce. It's not been because of Wheeler. It's been because of everything else. So for what the Phillies were trying to get, they were trying to acquire the best catcher in baseball and then extend him. They did that. He's locked in. He's been exceptional. He's won them a lot of baseball games with his glove. He's won them a lot of baseball games with his bat. Like he's done everything they could have asked for. I think to your point of look at what the Marlins have been able to do because they didn't retain JT. I hear that, but the Marlins and the Phillies are on different planets in terms of how they should be operating their baseball teams. Marlins are penny pinching. That's what they do. The Phillies should not be penny pinching. They can't justify not spending in free agency because they've already signed JT. That is not how this should be going. If that's how it's going, we have a problem. They signed JT. That was great. They signed Bryce Harper. That was great. They signed Zach Wheeler. They have to continue to spend. They have to continue to add talent. I know that's not always realistic, but this is Philadelphia. This is supposed to be a big market team. You can't buy your way to championships. The Yankees have been trying it for decades. It doesn't always work, but you can certainly, flex your muscle a little bit in the offseason. We're seeing it with the Mets right now. They're getting every good player because they're willing to spend the money. So for me, I look at the trade. The Phillies have been disappointing. JT has not been disappointing. He's been everything we could have asked for and then some. Does it suck to lose the high potential of Sixto? Sure, but ultimately speaking, he hasn't really pitched the last 3 years. So it's hard for me to sit here and be upset about a guy who hasn't played versus a guy who is playing.
Yeah, and right. I mean, I think the big thing too is JT Realmuto is not a cleanup hitter. Like if the Phillies put him where he should be in the lineup, like hit sixth, he'd be a fantastic number 6 hitter.
Oh, absolutely.
And the Phillies lineup, if he's hitting sixth for you, The Phillies lineup is so deep. If you can get a spot where you can have him hitting sixth, and that's where he should be because you have other pieces in your lineup. The fact that he's hitting cleanup, that's what drives me so crazy, and that's why I think expectations for him are so high. Because in reality, his contract's not really that bad, but he's hitting cleanup. He's not a cleanup hitter. Let's just acknowledge what it is. He should be hitting sixth. Maybe he hits second. That's another spot maybe he could hit at. But he is not a guy who should be smack dab in the middle of your lineup. Definitely. And I think that's where the biggest issue really lies. Of course, he's been great defensively, and he's a good offensive player. But your number 4 hitter needs to be a major contributor with the bat. Not just a good offensive player. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know what you're saying. David, let me ask you this, David, both of you. Would you rather have Avisel Garcia, Joey Wendell, Sandy Alcantara, those 3 players right there, right, on your team, plus maybe like a Sixto Sanchez that injury problems, but you give him another shot, or just JT Realmuto?
I just don't see how it correlates.
I don't know
how it correlates.
Even if it doesn't correlate, Francis, I'll answer you straight up. I'd rather have JT.
Really?
Because
that's crazy. But that's just one player. I'd rather have a more well-rounded team than just one good player.
But you can still.
I think I'd rather have the trio that Francisco listed.
Like I hear the argument.
I don't know how it correlates to each other. I don't know how that directly.
Well, I see. If you're equating, the JT cap space, for example, in Miami to getting those other players, I hear that argument. I think my counter to that is like getting a Joey Wendell isn't hard, and the Phillies have made it hard. And Matt Klentak,
right,
in particular, they made it hard on themselves. That's super easy. Like Alcantara, he's great, but like getting a young, they kind of did with Ranger Suarez. They have their own little version of a young ascending arm who can give you some innings and be a high upside pitcher. I think the harder part in baseball is landing the true blue chip talent, which I truly believe JT, he's the best catcher in baseball, in my opinion. He is a blue chip talent. They had to pay a little bit to get him. They had to give up a high value prospect in Sixto, who they maybe could have dealt for like a Mookie Betts or something, whatever. But to me, you got the blue chip talent. It helped influence him to re-sign. It made Bryce Harper happy. You have that position locked in for the next several years. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to ever worry about catcher being a weakness because it's the biggest strength in baseball for you right now is your catcher position.
Yeah, my only point of before I let you go, Francisco, I apologize.
That's cool.
Stepping on you there. But my point of how does it correlate is they traded for Wendell, they traded for Alcantara.
Right.
I understand they extended those guys, but they had the pieces to acquire them. It's not like they just said, "Here's a bag, come play for the Marlins."
Right. I get that, but they've made moves this offseason, which I don't think they'd be able to make if they if they had to give JT that big contract. You don't agree with that?
I think that's fair. I also think with the new ownership group they have in there, and they have it's just a different Miami Marlins organization than it was 5 years ago.
No, I agree with that. I definitely agree with that.
Because they were loaded 5 years ago. It's amazing that they didn't win anything with how damn good that
outfield. Unbelievable.
Yeah, that team was ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't even think they won. I don't even think they finished over 500 any of those years. And they had they had 2 MVPs playing in their outfield.
It's those New Jerseys, man. Go back to the old Marlins jerseys.
I agree. Go back to the Florida Marlins.
Yeah. What the heck? Derek Jeter comes in and he wants to have a fresh start. What the hell are you doing? Hey, fresh start hasn't done jack.
Kevin, you wanted to talk. I'm going to pivot away from JT. You wanted to talk Zach Eflin a little bit today.
Yeah, you read my mind because that's right where I was about to shift this to here. So we talked Zach Wheeler. We've talked Aaron Nola. We just mentioned Ranger Suarez as well. So we're working our way down that Phillies rotation. Where we get to now is the number 4 guy. Really has become a forgotten man. And I feel like in the Philadelphia Phillies organization, a guy I've been a big advocate of for a long time. I will say, when everybody wanted Nick Pivetta, I was riding the Zach Eflin train. I believe that he is a quality middle of the rotation arm when healthy. That's the big thing. And now he has major surgery again on his knees. I believe it was his knees. I don't have it up in front of me. I don't want to sound like a fool. But I think it was his patella tendon. Not great. He's still, 27 years old. It's his second major surgery on that body part. Last time it happened, I remember a start back in his rookie season. He couldn't even walk down the dugout steps when they're pitching out in Dodger Stadium. They fixed that for him. His velocity shoots up. He becomes more of a reliable arm, and then it happens again. So he's quickly becoming the odd man out of this rotation. Ranger Suarez ascended. They got Kyle Gibson now as well, who's a veteran. People don't remember that they still have Zach Eflin in the fold. I'm a guy who's a lot higher on him, as I mentioned. I think he's a quality mid-3s to low-4s ERA arm, which has a lot of value in today's game. So, Francisco, to shift it over to you. Zach Eflin, let's assume he comes back. He's healthy in 2022. What kind of impact does he have on the Phillies just throughout the whole season? If he's healthy, he's your number 4 option. He pitches like we think he can.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think as a number 4, yes, he is a good number 4 when healthy. But that's the issue. It's health. I'd give him. I think, is this a contract year, guys? Am I right on that?
I believe it is.
I don't think he's set to hit the open market.
Okay. I mean, I think this is. I think you guys would agree. I think this is Eflin's last chance. I mean,
I think that's fair. Yeah.
I don't dislike Zach Eflin. I think he has good stuff. His sinker is super nasty when it's on. It really works well for him, and he's had stretches where he looks like a number 2. So I mean, it's there. It's just the health. I mean, it's simply put, it's just the health. As long as he can stay healthy, he could be key for this rotation, and a rotation that hasn't been very it's been very top heavy, where it's Wheeler and Nola, and then even Nola didn't have a good season last year. Very average. So I mean, no, the rotation needs Zach Eflin to have any sort of success this year. It's just going to be the health, man. It would definitely be a good thing for the team if he stays healthy, because they need that. So it just comes down to health.
Yeah, I mean, people won't realize from 2018, through last season. So that's a 4-year window. He made 80 starts for the Phillies. His ERA of 4.18. His FIP 4.10. That's a quality number 4. That's a middle to the back end of the rotation arm. Like that's a guy who's gonna pitch on a good team. If he hit free agency and he's healthy, he would have a good market. Teams would be interested in signing him, assuming he's healthy. And you are right, Francisco. I did look it up here. He's set to hit free agency in 2023. He's now entering. This is crazy. His 7th big league season. Pretty remarkable. He's been around that long. In reality, he's only had 2 full seasons out of those 6 so far. So I guess 3 if you want to count 2020, which was it's a handful of starts, but still, it's a guy that I think would have a lot of value around baseball. So he's just quietly been just steady, just a steady arm. And like you said, Francisco, a big reason why I was so high on him all the time. And guys, everyone liked Pivetta and I would like Eflin, is because Eflin would have those stretches where he'd go 7 or 8 starts, sub 3 ERA. He would have he'd string starts together. He'd do a complete game shutout. He'd come out next game 7 strong, next outing 7 strong. He's just been quality. He's not an ace. He's not a top of the rotation arm. But when they go and is good, he is a valuable player in today's game. David, I know you've been all over the place on your opinions on Eflin, like a lot of the Phillies nation has been. What do you view as his ceiling in 2022 and beyond? Do you think he's a part of the Phillies' plans moving forward?
Yeah, and you're certainly right. My opinion has been all over the place. I used to hate Zach Eflin. I would get so frustrated with him. I remember it was
until you linked up with me, man. I was in your ear.
You've been successful in changing my opinion. I like Eflin. There's a lot of value with him. Again, but Francisco, you make great points. Like, he has to stay healthy. We can't do the thing where we get 3/4 of the way through the season and he needs 2 weeks off right when the going gets tough. And the knee surgery is certainly concerning. Kevin, I did look it up. It is his patella tendon again, his right patella tendon that they had to operate on. So that's obviously concerning. 2 major knee surgeries in just a handful of years. I'll tell you this: whenever I play MLB The Show, and I'm the Phillies,
of course,
I always re-sign him. I always bring him back.
No doubt.
So there's certainly value with him. When he's on his game and he's giving you 6 strong every 5 days, there's so much value there. And with where the Phillies are at, they need guys who can do that. I mean, it's been an issue for them. And you look at where the rotation is right now, assuming everybody's healthy, they have 5 quality arms that they can count on. So with Eflin, I agree. I think 2022 is kind of his last chance to prove to the Phillies that he's more than just an average pitcher, that he's an above average arm, that he's a guy with still some untapped potential in there. But he's got to stay healthy. He's got to stay consistent. We can't get to the dog days of July and August and he's nowhere to be found. Like, we need him to be part of that core this year and not just a guy on the outside looking in.
Yeah, and just to shift to Francisco's point, if the Phillies are out of it in July and he's healthy, he's a good trade piece. Teams would be interested in trading for Zach Eflin. And I'm a big Eflin guy. I would rather him be here long term. But at the same time, even if he puts together a really good season, am I really banking on that he's going to be able to stay healthy, even if he does it this year? That's always going to be there, and I think that's a shame. And it's really cheesy, but like, he was the first piece of the rebuild. He was the first guy they got. It's going into his 7th year, so it's kind of just like it feels like he's been here forever, but at the same time, it feels like he just got here. So it's definitely been one of those careers, but I am open to looking to move him. If we get down to it and it's like, well, the Phillies aren't going to accomplish anything this year, I think he would have a market for sure. A good young arm, that teams could look to add to their rotation. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out moving forward with Zach Eflin. With that said, we're talking about a lot of moving pieces here for the Phillies. So this is kind of a 2-part question I did want to pose to both of you. A lot of talk about the universal DH being a foregone conclusion going into 2022 and beyond. The Phillies have a bunch of DH caliber guys on their roster. Thank God they just dumped one of them. I got to get in my weekly jab of Andrew McCutchen. Thank God he's gone. So they got him off the roster. But they still have a few guys who would probably benefit most in a DH role. What comes to mind initially is obviously Rhys Hoskins or Alec Bohm. Francisco, you had me fired up this morning. You tweeted out the video of Alec Bohm going yard. I want to say I was at that game in April. That was an April game against the Mets.
Yeah.
I was definitely sitting in the upper deck, but I remember that thing was loud off the bat. So just in terms of universal DH and how it's going to impact the Phillies, specifically Alec Bohm, what do you view the most realistic scenario, I guess, of how they will handle the universal DH? And second part of the question, what are the expectations for Alec Bohm? Let's say he falls into that kind of role.
Right. So, I mean, I just thought of this. What if, Didi Gregorius is still on this team? Not a great defensive shortstop. That's a well-known fact. He's somebody they could give that spot to. He could be a DH. You maybe call up Bryson Stott and he can play a little shortstop. Why not?
I'm all for DFA and Didi, man. I'm all for it.
Oh, we're DFA and Didi?
I'm all for that.
Every Phillies fan is. He has one bad year. All of a sudden, he's the worst player ever. What?
I like Didi. Like, I'm going to say it. I'm stating my case. I think he's going to bounce.
You got it. Listen, you got to give Didi. Look, you've got other areas you need to worry about. Shortstop, I'd let Didi come back and try to bounce back and have a decent season. You have other areas, the bullpen, the rotation, there are left field, center field. There are other areas to worry about. You're not the number one priority isn't trying to get rid of Didi or whatever. All I'm saying is let Didi not play shortstop. Maybe he gets the DH. Call up Bryson Stott, possibly. I don't think they're going to be signing any of these big shortstops or anything. Nor do I think they should.
Well, okay, that gets into another question I was going to pivot to. So, all right.
Yeah. All right. So you want me to finish? What
keep going. Yeah. Okay. What do you think this is going to impact that and Alec Bohm and where does this impact the Bills?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Rhys and Bohm, that they could definitely be DH options. And by the way, I'm ecstatic that they finally freaking got the universal DH. I'm ecstatic about that because that's long overdue. It never really made sense to have 2 different leagues and 2 different ways you're doing it. So anyway, I do think Bohm can bounce back. I think look, man, there's a very small group of players that don't go through what young players go through, and that is trying to figure it out. Sometimes players have success. right off the bat, which Alec Bohm did. And, pitchers pitch to him differently. They say, oh, well, I can get him out this way and that way. And young hitters are trying to figure it out. Bohm's in that stage. So there were points last year where I thought he looked really good. And there were points last year where he was really bad. I mean, plain put, he started off the season. He hit that home run that we just referred to. And I was like, oh my God, he's the best thing ever. He's going to be the best Phillies third baseman ever, better than Mike Schmidt. But he, it got to a point in the season where he just he hit that little fork in the road, and he's still trying to figure it out. But there were points in the season last year where he came back and he was having good stretches. So I'd like to see what he's going to do this year. This is going to be interesting, and it's going to be critical for the Phillies because, you look at 2020, you look at how good Bohm was, even how good Didi was as a hitter, by the way. So it's crucial. It's crucial, and it's crucial especially because we don't have a farm system, and he's one of the young, one of the higher touted, he was one of their brighter prospects that came up and, is supposed to be a good player. So this year is crucial for him. I will say that. For sure.
I mean, people folded on him really quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I understand. I agree. I mean, like, I understand it was a handful of games, but like, you don't hit 338 by accident. It's kind of like, that's a good stretch. And I feel like people also don't realize, the power wasn't necessarily there. The power is something I do want to see him improve on. But from June 1st on last year, he hit 293 with a 361 on base. Like he was able to kind of rebound offensively. He only had 3 homers in that stretch, but I'm not as worried about that. Like, I'm not looking at Alec Bohm as like a 35, 40 homer guy. Yeah. I view Alec Bohm as a guy who's going to hit 290, 300, maybe hit 20, 25 homers, hit 40 doubles. That's the kind of player I view him as. I don't necessarily believe in the glove, but like, I think the bat and the hit tool is still elite. I know, David, you're going to get into it, I'm sure. And I don't know it off the top of my head, the numbers that you did put out on Twitter, but his exit velocity was like one of the highest percentiles in baseball. Like, this guy can hit, and that's the thing. Like, you can work on the glove. You can try to help him as much as you can defensively. Some guys are just pure hitters, and like, they are just have the natural ability to be able to spray the baseball all over the field. I view him as a gap-to-gap line drive hitter. I think Francisco, I think you hold the same type of thought. I mean, he's not a big power guy. He's a big dude, but he's a guy who can just hit. And I don't know. Like, people want to get rid of him. He's not the answer. Let's trade him. Like, the Phillies need him to be good. Like, having Alec Bohm developing into the player that we all think he can be will completely transform the Phillies' outlook because, all right, if you get into a situation, let's say they add a Kyle Schwarber, they add another big-time bat that you can put in the middle of the order, that pushes Realmuto down to 6th. You got Alec Bohm hitting 7th? That's pretty good, man.
Yeah,
like,
that's very good.
That's a pretty damn good hitter that you have hitting towards the bottom of your lineup. So I'm very high on Alec Bohm. There's no way that I'm going to be getting ready to let's ship him out of town. No way. I want to give him an opportunity to continue to grow because you're right. Guys struggle, man. It happens. Guys come up and pitchers adjust. They're playing at the highest level in the world.
Yeah. The only guys I've ever seen that didn't struggle at any point when they came up or when they were young were guys like Derek Jeter, and he's one of the best hitters of all time. So it happens to everybody. Bryce Harper has struggled.
Yeah.
It freaking happens. Mookie Betts had a down year last year. It freaking happens. Like, I mean, we're sitting here getting pissed off about how old is he? He's like his early 20s.
24, 23.
Yeah, I mean, like, I get it. It's Philly. And it might be because of the part of the crappy farm system. We don't have many guys, so it's like, oh well, this guy's got to be really good. I get it, but you got to give it time, man. You got to at least give it this season, at least.
Yeah, and I mean, you're in a division where they face DeGrom 5 or 6 times a year. They face Max Scherzer 5 or 6 times a year. Like this division with pitching is unbelievable. Like you mentioned, Alcantara, Trevor Rogers, with Miami
last year.
Sixto now. Like, there's some really good pitching in the division. It's way too early to pull the cord, in my opinion. David, what are your thoughts on Alec Bohm?
Yeah, and I want to touch first on the DH conversation, then I'll get to Bohm. I think first of all, DH, big win, not only for baseball, in my opinion, but especially for Philadelphia.
My dad is going to be just chewing me out after he listens to this.
Is he not a
He
fan?
hears you
The
guys
old heads,
praising
man.
me.
No.
I am going to be hearing it after this. I'm sure.
But the short term win of the DH for Philly is they have a lot of guys on the roster who would benefit from that role next year. Whether it's a Didi Gregorius, who, I'm not opposed to keeping him around and trying to let him bounce back. Now, with that said, if a team's willing to take on his contract, I'd probably do that and then look to move elsewhere at the shortstop position. But if he's on the roster next year and you want him out of the infield, put him at DH, give JT some off days at DH. Obviously, Rhys Hoskins and Alec Bohm can DH. Give Bryce Harper some days off at DH. Like, it's a short-term win. The long-term win, of course, is it allows you to commit to a guy like Alec Bohm in the long term, or a guy like Rhys Hoskins, or maybe a guy like Kyle Schwarber. It gives you more flexibility with the lineup. Regarding Bohm, I mean, I'm right there with you guys. Like, what are we doing? It's been a season and a quarter, like 100
played like
games,
150 games or something.
like, what are we talking about right now?
Yeah.
Like, he's so young. He dominated in the minor leagues. He dominated his rookie season. He should have won Rookie of the Year that year. I mean, he hit 338, right? Like,
Yes.
what are we talking about? But like, some of his advanced statistics specifically suggest this guy's due to be a really good player. So last year, and again, everybody loved him in 2020. Everybody hated him in 2021. The funny part is his hard hit percentage actually increased in 2021. It was 46. I got the numbers right here. It was 46.
Baseball's wild, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't it?
It was 46.8% in 2020 when he was the best young hitter in all of baseball. And then in 2021, where he drastically struggled, it went up to 49.5%, 90th percentile. It was in the 90th percentile of all hitters. Like, he was exceptional at hitting the ball. He just kept hitting it to the defense. Like, that's not going to continue. We know baseball averages out. I just don't think the Phillies gave him enough time last year to average his numbers out. They just yanked him out. They sent him down. They put him over here. They put him over there. You really saw it in the second half. He started to heat back up once he was allowed to hit again. So I'm confident he'll be good. I don't know if he's going to hit 330 again, but I'm very confident he'll hit at least 260, hopefully pushing up to the 280, 290 range. So, yeah, and especially get him out of the infield with the DH, or whether that's at first base. Like, a lot of potential for this kid to be a big piece of the organization moving forward. In no shape or form should they be shopping him. They shouldn't be out on him. He should be a focal point to the offense next year.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll tell you this: if he hit 260, David, I'm very disappointed, because I don't. That's how high I view his hit tool. He's a guy that I truly believe should hit 280, 290, 300. I think 260 would be disappointing if he hit 260 in 2022. Then the only pushback is, does he hit 30 plus homers then? Like what's his run production at that point? I just think he's a better contact hitter. I would be very disappointed with 260.
I would too, to be honest. I would too. I don't.
I'm underselling him then. Like, yeah. I mean, if he hits 280, 290, like, let's do it.
Yeah, I'd be happy with like 270, 275.
Good on
I'm
base
okay
percentage,
with that. Yeah, look, I mean, if he's going up towards up towards 360 to 380 on base percentage, I'm pretty happy. So you just got to give him time, man. Philadelphia fans got to give him time. Look at what he did in 2020. No one gave a crap about the defense when he was raking, because I do exaggerate at times. I say defense doesn't matter. It does matter to a certain extent, but listen, it doesn't matter to a certain extent. If Bohm is raking, the defense doesn't matter. The same thing with Didi. Didi was raking in 2020, and no one gave a crap about how bad he was at short, because being a better hitter is more important than just being a somewhat below average fielder. So, Bohm, the number one thing we want with him, come back and rake.
Yeah, I mean, my only real pushback on the last comment there is just third base is a really important position. Like,
absolutely,
like,
I agree with that.
We've talked about it on the show. I mean, David, I'm a big believer in move Alec Bohm to left field. You can hide him a little bit more in the outfield.
It worked for Rhys Hoskins.
Yeah, but him being a bad left fielder compared to a bad third baseman, I think, is a big difference. I think it has a big impact. I also believe he could probably play a decent left field because he's a good athlete. He can move a little bit, whereas Rhys Hoskins was just a statue out there.
Well, that's the funny part is the amount of times Bohm has made like a spectacular catch in foul territory, like over his shoulder, where I'm like where the hell did that come from? You can't field a
Well,
ground ball, but you can.
Didi was making like spectacular plays too, but the numbers say he's not a good shortstop.
It was like a ground ball is petrifying to them, but like an over the shoulder, like contorting their body, they're all about it. So yeah, I agree that I think Bohm would actually be a decent corner outfielder. But Dombrowski did say in his end of the year press conference that they're not exploring that. So be it.
Yeah, I mean, I just think you could hide him out there because left field in Citizens Bank Park's pretty small. So, let's say the Phillies are able to land a good defensive center fielder. I think you could get away with having Bohm in left. But, if they're not going to do that, I do believe he needs to improve defensively. And like you said, Francisco, if he doesn't improve defensively, he needs to be an elite offensive player. It's one or the other. But with that said, like I mentioned, I'm a big believer in him. So, look, if you get him, and what we're doing, we're playing the what if game, which that seems to be the theme in Philadelphia. We play, well, if this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, they'll be a very good team. But if Alec Bohm can come and be the player we think he can be, you got Bryson Stott coming up through the pipeline. They have some other prospects who are not as well known, but continue to rise up the ranks. Look, a big thing that me and David have with Bryson Stott, Francisco, is every year he's continued to move up the rankings. And to me, that's like such an important thing to see because you continuously have new guys who get signed internationally, who get drafted, who get added to that prospect pool. And he continues to climb and he continues to rise up the rankings, which to me signifies he's continuing to improve. He's continuing to get better, and he's set to be a good major leaguer. It doesn't always work that way, but it's a good sign. If they can get Alec Bohm figured out and they get Bryson Stott to come up, be the player they think he can be, it starts to kind of change the perspective of the Philadelphia Phillies because then, you have these two young players that you were able to draft and you were able to develop to become contributing players on your big league club. It kind of changes the outlook a little bit. You feel a little bit differently about the Phillies because instead of this 32-year-old guy that they threw a bag at in free agency, you got a 23, 24-year-old guy who's on that rookie contract scale right now, who you have under team control for X amount of years. It just kind of gives you a different vibe. A youthful, upbeat vibe. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, what I talked about earlier, optimism. Like that's what we want as Phillies fans. We want. I know you already have it, Kevin, but
damn right.
Normal people like me and David, we don't have it because I'm dumb. I'm sorry, but no, you do have a good point there. I do think that would be a step in the right direction. I'm not all in at that point, but definitely a step in the right direction. So because you can't forget about Scott Kingery. You can't forget about other prospects they've had that didn't pan out and that they completely ruined. But you're right though. It would be a good step from going there to there. Yes, I agree.
Well, all right. So one more thing before we wrap up here, because guys, we're closing in on an hour. You got to love it. You get together, you talk baseball. It just kind of flows. But you mentioned something that this is just off the top of my head. You mentioned Scott Kingery.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think he fits into the Phillies' plans in 2022 and beyond? Because he's not on the 40 man.
That's crazy. Good.
It's like, look, I know a lot of people didn't like Odubel Herrera last year, and it's completely different circumstances.
Right.
But he was a forgotten man, and he ended up being the Phillies' starting center fielder. Like this time last year, we weren't even really talking about Odubel, and now it's the same thing with Scott Kingery. They DFA'd him. Nobody claimed him, or they didn't DFA him. They took him off the 40 man. Nobody claimed him, so he's still with the Phillies. They're still paying him. What do you view his role potentially? You would got to think they're going to give him a look, right?
I guess. I mean, you got to think he's going to start out in the minors this year, right? He's not going to.
What's my thing? What if he comes up in spring training and he looks like Scott Kingery?
What's that look like?
Well, of 2018, but prior than when he stunk.
Yeah, I mean, I think 2019 was like, all right? He was okay. He was fine.
Yeah, he actually had a pretty nice year. Yeah,
he was fine. Yeah, he was okay. I mean, I think like as we said with Eflin earlier, like this is the year. It's kind of the same thing with Kingery. I mean, like I haven't even really given Kingery a thought, but I mean, it is a good point if he can kind of, show.
Here we
show
are
a little
again,
promise.
playing the game of what ifs. Here we
Yeah,
go.
yeah. You know, this is why sports are fun, because we can play the what ifs. I understand, but I mean, I don't know, man. I don't really have any like faith in Kingery. I don't really have any, what's transpired over the last couple of years. And part of that might not even be his fault. Part of that just could be the Phillies absolutely ruining his swing.
Nah, I don't buy into that now.
You don't buy into that?
Nah,
You don't buy into.
I think they might have played a part, but
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The player also is, people don't want to blame the player, but know, it's still on the player.
No, I agree, but you gotta give some fault to,
I think that's fair.
Yeah, but I think we agree that it's they both play parts.
David, what say you in terms of Kingery, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, fellas, I'll give you the answer right now. There's no chance in hell he gets back. Like, I mean, and I've defended Scott Kingery on this podcast.
You have.
Before.
Yes, you have.
I used to love Scott. I still think he can be an MLB player, but it's not going to be with the Phillies. I mean, I point back to a comment Dombrowski made at the end of the year press conference where they were asking about the center field position, and they were asking about Adam Hazley and Mickey Moniak, and he kind of outright said, like, yeah, like probably not, guys. Like, we're probably not looking at those two. And if they're not looking at those two who are on the active roster, how the hell is Scott Kingery going to win this organization back? I think, we talk about 2022 being the last year for Eflin to kind of prove his value. I think 2021 was the last year for Kingery. They gave him a chance to win the center field. It was abysmal. He gets taken off the roster. Then he gets shoulder surgery. I think no one ever points that out. He had season-ending surgery. He did not play last year in the minor leagues. He was shut down. Like, he's not. Now you got the lockout going on. Like, he is in a terrible spot with this organization. I think he will, once he clears the roster, once his contract's off the book, he hopefully latches on with a different team as a training camp invite. Maybe works his way up through that organization. But his Philadelphia days are done. They're cooked.
It's surprising to me, and he makes a good amount of money, but like his contract's not like totally egregious. Like for what his production has been, yes, it has. Yes, it is bad. But it's not like he's making $25 million a year. I was really surprised that nobody put a claim in for him. Like, I get the money aspect, but like you would think a lower tier team would, take a stab at a guy like that who was thought of so highly, and you have him under contract to try to, take a flyer to see if you could fix him. I think that's really, really telling that nobody took a chance on that. And I'm sure it has to do with the contract, but like I mentioned, like, he making like $7 million a year, $8 million a year? Like, obviously $7 or $8 million, but there's guys making a lot more money with even less production than what he's been able to do.
I mean, he wasn't even on a major league roster this year.
That's nobody. All 29 other teams had the chance to claim him, and nobody took a chance.
It's insane. I don't know. It's such a shame too. I remember when we gave him. When they gave him the contract, we're all so excited about Kingery. He's the next Chase Utley, and that. And here we are. It's February 12th.
Yeah, I remember the Dustin Pedroia comment the most.
Yeah. Pedroia's right. That obviously makes more sense. But just as far as Phillies comparisons, it was Chase, him playing second base, whatever. It's just a shame, man, because he was supposed to be a part of this core, man. And here we are, man. What was that? 2018, 4 years later. It's just. Man, but wishing the best to Scott Kingery. Hopefully he can, hopefully he can bounce back. Maybe he will make an appearance this year for the Phillies. I don't know. Who knows? But
I don't think it's against the realm of possibility he makes an appearance. But I agree. I don't think he's going to make the roster outright. But if if he's raking at Lehigh Valley, they would probably take a chance on him. I would think. They're paying him anyway.
Yeah, I guess because of the contract thing. It's like, oh, we got to play him. Yeah. I know.
Yeah, so we'll see. But that was all. That was off the top of the head. That was not in the notes. You mentioned Scott Kingery, as you mentioned. Forgot about him completely. So just kind of wanted to get your guys' perspective. But we're closing in on an hour here, fellas. So let's get ready here to wrap it up. Do you have any last thoughts, Francisco, on anything Phillies related or regarding the MLB lockout? Do you have any last words for the Bullpen Blues?
I don't know if it's happened before, but I want to start a petition to get Rob Manfred the hell out of office.
I'm sure that petition's been started. I'm sure.
Yeah, we got to do something. Can we do like the Bullpen Blues petition or something? We just got to get it. We got to get it out because this man referred to the World Series trophy as a piece of metal, as we all remember, and now he's referring to in his little media thing the other day. He's referring to the game of baseball as an industry because he's a freaking businessman. He doesn't care about this game of baseball. Get this guy out of here. That's my last words.
I do honestly think we had somebody comment, David, on the Bullpen Blues Twitter, a petition. I'm almost positive.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I know what you're
Somebody
talking about.
commented a petition to get Manfred out and to end the lockout. So,
They were
Bullpen Blues fans have started that already. We just got to sign it.
Yeah, he's terrible. My like boiling point with Manfred was when he said owning an MLB team isn't as lucrative as investing in the stock market. I was like, buddy, I invest in the stock market. I ain't sitting on billions right now like these owners are. Like, what are we talking about here? Fingers crossed they figure it out. There's still a couple of days left.
Need baseball.
I think there'll still be a season.
I'm not worried about them losing the season. I'm honestly encouraged that they've continued to meet. I think they're meeting today. I'm almost positive they're meeting.
They are. Yeah.
So let's
one breakthrough away, according to Manfred.
Let's hope that the Bullpen Blues mojo continues, where we release an episode and then we get breaking news. So let's just hope that happens. We get this podcast out to the airwaves, and then baseball's back. Let's just try to keep the good vibes going with the bad jinx that we seem to have, where we record and then something happens. So I think that's a good omen.
Certainly.
Yeah, and what if the lockout ends? If the lockout ends, let's say like tomorrow, wherever you guys put it out, you guys got to have me on every week.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair.
I think
whenever the Phillies are connected to a big trade target, get Francisco on to make it happen.
Right. Well, so when the Phillies sign Carlos Correa in like a week, we gotta have. Come on,
we're gonna we need something good to happen. Let's get Francisco on the show.
Right.
That'll help us.
Like a plan. All right, fellas. With that said, we just crossed the hour mark. Francisco, huge thank you for jumping on today and giving up so much of your time. Had a wonderful time talking all the topics. Again, everyone, follow him on Twitter. Yep. Follow his YouTube channel. Check out his Eagles podcast. Check out his upcoming Phillies podcast.
Baseball podcast.
Baseball. That's okay. That's all right. Yeah.
Follow all things Francisco. He's been absolutely wonderful to talk to. I've been on his show a couple times, and it's always good back and forth. Hopefully, have you on later in the season during the regular season when the Phillies are 20 games over 500 and in first place. With that said, we are the Bullpen Blues podcast, and we will talk to you all in a couple of days.
Go Phils.